Hello, this is Brendan Ferguson, designer and writer.
And Dave Grossman, similar.
And Dave Bogan, art director.
And Kim Lyons, environment artist.
And Emily Morganti, marketing.
So this is episode number 4, Abe Lincoln Must Die. Begins with yet again more clever puzzle exposition, because later we'll need to use the bug on the phone. So we said, aha, well, a little prank call to begin this episode.
I think this is one of my favorite openings, actually, because
I love it.
The music, it doesn't sound like Sam and Max when it first starts off. It sounds like The Exorcist or something. And the great bug voice again.
Yes.
And then it makes that switch, and the music shifts, and they go back into their sticky dialogue. It worked out really well.
It's also the first one that started with a little clip and then went into the credits and then landed in a brand new place, which I think was a change a lot of people were ready for after the first 3 episodes starting pretty much the same way.
So for this episode, we brought on an outstanding contract writer called Chuck Jordan. Not
his real name. Chuck is an old friend from LucasArts who, if I remember correctly, did a lot of the writing on Monkey Island 3.
That's true.
Very funny, and a lot of the writing on this episode.
Good old Chuck. And this was our break from the regular rainbow color shift in our opening title sequence. Since this episode is going to have a lot to do with the presidency, we decided to go with the old red, white, and blue titles here.
Oh, that's the connection.
Genius. By the way, the core idea behind this episode, the whole thing about the giant statue of Abe Lincoln coming to life, is one of those tiny bits of magic that comes out of Steve Purcell's brain at the meeting that we usually have over dinner right at the beginning of each episode. He just says one thing, and the entire episode becomes constructed around it.
One thing I forgot to mention about the opening titles is that we wanted to make each one unique and different, but obviously time and budget allowed us or forced us to go in certain paths. One was the color, and the second thing is the animation that Sam and Max play at the end of each title sequence. They do something a little different each time, which is always fun to come up with. I think this is my other favorite voice, I have to say. Again, behind the bug. But this guy's great.
This is Doug Boyd. He also does other voices for Sam Max, including, for example, the television announcer in various episodes. He's also a favorite from the Bone series as Smiley Bone. I thought one thing we wanted to make a president that had this kind of puppet look to him, and he does have that great howdy doody quality. And then for his voice, naturally we wanted to remind people of some of the favorite presidents of the last few years of the United States. But he has a bit of Bush and a bit of Clinton in him, but it carves out its own style.
There's a little Carter in there, too.
Yeah, just a touch.
That's it. You two are coming with me.
This Oval Office environment that you built, Kim.
Yes.
I got to write all of the dialogue lines for looking at the various little objects in the room at the very last minute. I think I had about 2 hours to get it done.
Oh,
And
good,
I was just impressed with how chock full it was of inspirational material. There's about 30 different things you can click
By
on.
impressed, you mean steamed. And
Those 20-hour workdays finally come in. But that's the fun part, actually. I mean, these environments are just supposed to be filled with just visual jokes, too. I mean, whatever we can do, actually.
Did we ever get a close-up of the Weasel Scout badges?
I don't know. See, we build it, and then it just goes out into the world like little kids. I don't...
They might in the war song. There's a lot of stuff you get to see in the...
And maybe we'll just have to go back to the president's office one day. In the Weasel Scout episode.
I would love that.
This is so disturbing.
This is a good example of a scene where, as we're getting near the end of the game and I'm play testing things, I know that I want angels to be singing there, but I don't hear them because the sound passes usually right near the end. And so that scene looks really bad without any angel sounds playing again. So it ends up coming out.
It's really hard for the chore artists and even for me directing them to know how far to take a scene when we're not exactly sure how far the music guys are going to come in and or are they going to have enough time to treat every scene in the game. But that one worked out really nicely.
Okay, now I didn't catch all that. What did he say?
That little translation puzzle was actually pretty neat. We were always looking for interesting new ways to make puzzles using dialogue, and that was a fun one.
Yeah, I like that puzzle a lot. I love any puzzle where even as you're just completely failing, it's just still amusing.
I'll never get tired of this scene.
That was a little callback to the opening of Sam Max Hit the Road.
What, silly me? I thought hypnotizee, not hypnotizer. What? Yes.
This was one where, as the game was coming together, we started, playing through it, and every time we got to this part, people would just flock around to watch it again. We probably played through it 15 times in the last week before the game shipped.
You done. He was like that when we got here. Sam did it!
These two numbskulls managed to off the president.
I love how Max just turns on Sam any chance he gets. He's so selfish.
Yeah, I was reading the script when Chuck sent it in and laughing my head off. Just, they kept saying, Sam did it, Sam did it, Sam did it. I think there was a few more in the original pass. We cut it down just a little bit.
As close as Sam and Max are to each other, I wonder which one of the two would jump in front of the other to catch a bullet. Maybe none of them.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
actually.
I don't know if either one.
Sam would probably just laugh, and Max would also laugh.
Sam would take a bullet for you.
Hey.
I think if there was any one of the two, it would be Sam.
This little shot wasn't even going to be in there until Jake made us do it, basically by building the entire environment and just handing it to us on a platter.
Over the decapitated body of the president.
What do you think this fake body is made of? Can I keep it?
No time for that now, Max. We've got...
The reason that was kind of made and put in there is because we got some focus testing back, and someone actually didn't recognize the giant Lincoln Memorial, which kind of astounded us.
Well, because the Lincoln Memorial doesn't have a hat.
Yeah, he doesn't have a
logic.
hat. That's true.
There's that.
I like the hat.
I insisted on the hat because I like the hat, frankly. I think it's very characteristic, but
It's very Lincoln.
I question that decision occasionally.
And it makes him even taller than he already is.
We actually managed to keep the role of Lincoln in this game a secret for a very long time, which was kind of amazing. We kind of marketed it as if they were just going to find out what was wrong with the president. And, it did finally get out, but it was kept secret from the public for much longer than I expected it to.
That never gets old either.
robotic implants. Yes. Okay. I see. We're on it.
Wrong number?
That was the commissioner, Max. If this new mecha...
I like how there's kind of all of a sudden there's a second goal the commissioner calls again.
This was one of those scenes where there was a lot of things we needed to explain by the end of the scene to make it very clear exactly what you had to do against Lincoln from here on in, and that you were going to have to run Max for president. I like that they pick Max only because Sam got to answer the phone.
It's only fair.
I don't know if you noticed, but there was an extra star on the U.S. flag on top of the White House, and that was to represent the soda poppers.
West
The extra
Dakota.
state put in there. West Dakota?
West Dakota.
Yeah.
Actually, the 26th star. Nobody seems to care that 25 states fell into the ocean.
That's true.
I was star of a popular television sitcom.
I'm on the
And in the next episode, there's a little side thing about Max having demoted Florida or sold it back to somebody or something. Florida ceases to exist and the star comes back off the flag again because we always pay attention to these details.
as we bring you the first in a series of debates.
Hey, there's the voice of the President of the United States.
In the Republican corner, we have the giant animated statue of Abraham Lincoln. And representing the random violence...
Now I'm just mesmerized. I can't say anything.
Yeah.
So this part was one where we're always looking for new types of ways to interact with characters and new kind of situations to be in. And running for president, we thought it would be very fitting and characteristic for Max never to say anything good on his behalf, only to run a mudslinging campaign and somehow run Lincoln into the ground. So this whole sequence involves somehow making Lincoln look bad.
Sacred asset as Americans. Candidate Max, your rebuttal?
I like that we've got the Washington press corps, and it's all Secret Service guys just wearing different hats, which, of course, we did just to save ourselves work because we couldn't go model a whole bunch of different characters, but it actually turns out to make a pretty good political statement as well.
I'm glad that Sybil finally got out of the office in this episode.
She grew legs just for this.
This is a good example, and it'll force us to do this more in the future, is getting those characters out of there, making those characters feel like they're more alive and getting out and doing other things than just sitting in their chairs or standing behind their counters.
The election are coming in, and it appears that former sitcom star Max has been elected.
We don't make enough use of that particular mode of exposition, having the newspaper spin up to the camera. We did it a few times in this episode. But
I wish there could be at least 10 per episode. Newsflash.
You might get some fight back on that.
He took the news much better than expected.
Democracy?
The music's great here.
Abe Lincoln.
Get it? He makes him slaves, Lincoln.
How profound.
Abe Lincoln Must Die.
I think this episode has the most use of rack focus, too, which made some people throw up. And we're proud of that.
People will vote for anyone these days. Obviously. What's that?
And yet again, the soda poppers managed to work their way in. I mean,
just can't
the
get rid of
story
those
wrote
guys.
itself. These former stars somehow become governors.
Story wrote itself,
Imagine
but
that.
that puzzle, I remember we had a lot of trouble designing it. Just we knew we wanted to start a war between them, but just exactly how we were going to do that went through a lot of iterations of very complicated things
Yeah.
involving getting all three of them to hate the other ones in various ways.
And then we said, you know
eventually
what,
just boiled down to
let's
this.
just get a guy drunk and call it a day.
What happened to the bottle?
You guys are my best friends.
This is one of my my favorite surprises that one of the Telltale Tool guys
You never told me you thought my idea.
came up with. They actually made a character look like he was drunk. I was pretty surprised by that. We didn't really have much animation support for drunk gestures or anything like that. I think Daniel just ended up slowing down a lot of the animations and making sure that they were off time with the dialogue. And I think we did have one drunk animation, which was the idol, the breathe idol. It makes him look like he's kind of half asleep and stumbling around. But it's just, it really adds a lot to that scene.
Of course you realize this means
Uh-oh.
And timing is
Great.
everything.
Oh, the war song.
I love this song.
Who doesn't?
This is this whole production is a classic example of us not thinking things quite through to the end. We sort of designed it saying, oh yeah, and then you start a war, and then there'll be a big Busby Berkeley kind of musical number, and it'll be really easy to do because they'll all be secret agents, so they'll be really stiff, and we'll just do it, and somebody will spend a day on it, and that'll be that. And then we got back to music and started thinking about how to actually choreograph the thing, and we realized, okay, well, we have to keep it interesting for 2.5 minutes, and boy, this is going to be a lot of work, Dave.
It was quite a lot of work to get this thing done, and just to go. You get this vision in your head that these guys are supposed to be stiff and kind of boring and bad dancers and no personality, but you put that stuff on screen and it just doesn't. It's not funny. It doesn't read. It's pretty hard to do that. But the direction we ended up going in, we budgeted an animator to do some dance animations and some funky gestures and just kind of threw it all together. And I can't say enough about this funky dance, man. I don't know where this came from.
is in dance clubs.
And you just
I'm going to
They're
have
not
to have a
quite-
talk with Jeff, I think.
They're not quite in sync.
But when I was thinking of this whole thing, I hate to admit it, but my big inspiration for this was the movie Little Orphan Annie. Because there's all kinds of crazy dancing
I love
and
that.
musical numbers in that movie. And my sisters used to watch that thing
I
relentlessly.
think I've seen it 300 times too.
So yeah, about 300
That's not my
times.
inspiration for this game. It's my inspiration for life.
I love Little Annie.
This was the best part, Dave, watching you model how, or kind of imitate how Jeff should animate this.
Yeah, it was a bit of taking a step down, trying to dance like that.
I wish I had a camera
bringing
in
my
headset.
And then on the
fantastic
couch like
dance
that was his
skills down
terrible.
to that level and trying to dance like a Secret Serviceman in front of the company. That was
It was great.
That was pretty tough.
That was a good day.
I'll do it
there
again.
we go.
This is some major trickery right here. There's no more than 4 or 5 Secret Service agents in the room, and yet we just keep quickly moving them around to make it feel like there's a whole room full of them.
That painting, by the way, back there of the guy in the George Washington wig is actually Steve Purcell.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
took a while. Did everybody get that?
An international press person wrote and asked me if that was Dick Cheney.
Shane.
Kind of.
Gosh, I can kind of see it.
So yeah, one of the long dreams for the series would be that Bosco would eventually be proven right that he is being targeted by the government and that you would get to try to shoot his store
The
down.
system actually works.
Well played, Bosco. You're safe.
Fortunately, you've been funneling him enough cash that he's might be able to mount a defense.
Mr. President,
Don't mind if I do.
I like that they have no qualms about blowing up Bosco's.
Part of this scene,
Croissant.
part of this sequence also was to telegraph to the player that there's a beacon that you have to grab in Bosco's store. And we do that by showing certain camera angles on the monitor for each of the targets.
Dukes of Hazzard.
Yeah.
My other inspiration for life.
Yes.
we broke 2 trains in one afternoon.
A personal best.
Well, it looks like the country is saved, at least from mass hypnosis.
Now we're gonna go eat some food again.
Of course.
Class until they're burning their own shoes for heat.
Sounds fun, but I was thinking we could treat ourselves to some chocolate frosted gut bombs and then have a little target practice at the Smithsonian.
Sam, you're my best friend.
Lincoln Space Star.
I love
Sure,
these.
whose voice this is.
Whose voice?
Is Chuckles dead?
Good question, Dave. I wonder. Bye now.
Hi, I'm Marco Brezzo. I worked on choreography for episode 4, Sam and Max season 1.
I'm Jake Rodkin. I worked on the war song in Sam and Max episode 4.
Hi, I'm Tim Reardon, animator on episode 4.
Hi, I'm Jeff Saar, and I'm also an animator on episode 4.
I'm Daniel Farja Morera, and I did choreography and rigging.
It was a great takeoff on the Exorcist theme there.
Yeah. A little bit of Exorcist, a little bit of Halloween.
Yeah.
Yes, 14 packs.
That's a great
14
line.
packs
14
of Do we know who did the voice for the
The commissioner.
The commissioner.
I think it's usually Jared or Julian who does that.
but for the
Who just goes,
for the demon?
Oh, the demon.
That was
They
Brendan.
they sound somewhat similar.
I don't know. It might be in the credits.
Of the United States of America.
Brendan usually does the bug, so it's quite possible he did the demon, but
What else is new?
He's got that staff sergeant gonna train your
yeah,
butt
yeah,
down
it's
pretty
completely
good.
opposite of his regular character.
Threatening the environment.
It's the first episode that you don't start playing in the office.
Mandatory gun registration.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Get the keys.
Oh yeah, we're supposed to do this during.
And this was going to be a lot more. There's supposed to be a lot more with these credits originally, correct?
Well,
Like a big
It was sort of a
red, white, and blue thing.
It was sort of a trade-off. There was originally something involving an American flag and Sam and Max walking along the very bottom of the screen in silhouette with a tuba and a giant marching drum. But instead, all of the time spent making that cut.
This is what the
on the war
ultra
song.
patriotic episode, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. There was some attempt at yeah.
Rock on.
There's the rock on one. That's right.
Stripes and stuff in the background.
Just stars.
Or stars?
Stars only.
Oh, no stripes?
Get the record straight, Daniel.
Sorry.
And I have to point out that we could have avoided this gruesome accident if you hadn't jumped on my head shouting Jersey Devil, and firing your gun out the window.
Classic point up left.
Can't start a game without it.
Yeah, no, you need to have the point up left somewhere, I guess.
Nerds.
You guys are giving
That's
away
a
trade secrets.
great model.
Trade secret.
The White House there.
These same folks will say that we're wrong for introducing
Smiley Bow.
It's a great voice for the president, too.
Yeah. I love his brand of insanity.
Conclusion, America. Get your back up off the wall.
Start to hypnotize.
It's worse than we thought, Max.
Very subtle with his tiny little eyes in there, but
Yeah. Well, then we do make it not so subtle with the.
extreme close up.
One of 15
Yes.
pan zoom combos.
Yeah. Do a little focal pull. That's a scary face on Sam.
The surprised?
Yeah, the surprise. His eyes just get so big.
Yeah.
One of them.
Oh. Return of Chuckles.
Goes next to it.
Right there.
And then the
That's
president
nice.
waves.
Yeah.
Now I have to get back to the president. He's not supposed to be around.
Oh, there's your getting up animation, Jeff.
Yeah. Governor Wizard.
The poppers.
What a bizarre character. Those soda poppers.
There was some talk of having them dressed as.
Yes, gubernatorial costumes do exist for the soda poppers. They showed up too late. They may appear on the internet at some point. Oh man.
Soda abuse.
I love the way he says that.
Abuse.
I had to do special squinty eyes for him.
I almost feel bad about this.
I don't have a conscience, Sam. What's your excuse?
And it's amazing how much.
How did he open that with that?
I was about to point that out as well.
Industry secret.
That is Wizard actually popping soda.
More! I need more! I need a...
Another exploited animation, but that's what he does.
Perfect for him. That's his,
There's quite a few of those.
it's like his catchphrase.
His catch animation?
His catch animation.
Two here in the Oval Office.
No, it's just number one.
Interrogation. Come with me, sir.
But it'll only take a second. Please.
It's a lot of fun how Sam and Max just enjoy torturing the soda poppers.
Did you notice that there's like an official torturing the soda poppers theme song?
Yeah, Jared mentioned that the other day.
Oh, did he? Okay.
The poppers even enjoy torturing themselves.
Yeah.
They just don't make these guys like they used to.
This was an excellent cutscene. You animated this.
Yeah, yeah. This was. It's one of mine. This. Pretty soon, Sam's gonna do the thinking right here. The thinking.
Oh yes, the signature.
Which I've used in every single cutscene since then that I've done.
That's great. I wish I had to work with my chore.
I do it in 5 and 6, so you'll see that again.
This is where a chore takes over from the cutscene animation. We do this occasionally, where we'll hit home a real nice part of animation coming from the animators, and then since the sequences get so long, it comes over to us choreographers, and we expand it out with the rest of the dialogue, kind of get the boring parts in.
Well, that's where we fit in the point up in every single.
Exactly. You gotta put it somewhere.
And that one.
And the thumb
point.
right, thumb left.
Thumb left, you know.
Nagambe.
Oh man, here it comes.
And here's the Lincoln set.
Yes,
did this.
the zoom.
Yeah.
Right?
I modeled the environment, and Pete did the choreography and the animation for it. It was a very, very late
This was
addition.
great. Yeah, had to be done. This
Definitely needed. A lot of people didn't get that he was actually the Lincoln Memorial. They just thought he was a gigantic Lincoln that looked white.
Yeah, there were people in focus groups who were saying things like, "Did Chuckles like build a Lincoln robot and then it's powered by Lincoln's brain and stuff?" So people made up all sorts of weird things as to what the giant Lincoln was.
Coming up with their own answers.
So yeah, you have to put it in.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where
this little look Lincoln gives to the camera.
Yeah,
right there.
stellar.
Oh man, saucy.
A lot of fun having Chuckles on his shoulder.
Yeah, it was a nice touch putting him up there. It's pretty funny.
Did that destroy you?
Problems, didn't it?
Huh?
Caused you a lot of problems, didn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, well, just because we had never done, every so often, every single episode, the design team is like, we're gonna just have him, vomiting rainbows or have Chuckles on his shoulder, whatever. So this was our little technical challenge to put him on his shoulder and keep him there.
Have podium flags right in front of the character,
Right.
where the model just goes right through it.
It's hard to do with a 60-foot tall character.
Right.
Now this was hard to do. I heard because you had to do this connecting
doing the phone.
The phone and
That's another instance. We have these instances where they need to interact with the objects or pick things up. We have to time animations and blocking together so people can end up in the perfect spot at the perfect time to get an animation to work right and not have the phone be 2 inches out of his hand or something.
And there's the crazy.
It's a nice shot here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rays
It's
coming out
fun.
of his head.
Yes. The extra stuff.
The extra stuff. Dakota.
And Jimmy in the pool.
Yep. Those pool effects were fun. I got to play around with the different ways of creating ripples and moving water and try and do something a little more advanced than we usually have time to do for effects.
Totally worth it.
Yeah. For the amount that you end up looking down at the pool from Lincoln's perspective,
I love the phone books and
I
boxes.
didn't notice that till just now. Name.
Who did the choring for this?
This was all Pete.
Yeah.
He did such a good job with Lincoln's facial gestures.
Yeah, definitely.
Really good job.
That is awesome.
nice. Oh, there he goes. Puts it in his mouth. Come on.
And representing the random violence and destruction.
There's something so incredibly satisfying about seeing Max.
Like that one shot right there.
Presidential podium.
Yeah, that sells the entire thing.
The crotch shot.
Family values are the bedrock of this nation. Our fidelity, honesty, and loyalty to family is our most.
Oh yeah, Jay and Julian putting all the robot sounds in every single gesture.
Thousands.
That was easy to do because of the fact that Chuckles was attached.
Is this the first time you see Sybil not in her chair?
She was briefly not in her chair in episode 1, but only
really?
walking to her chair.
Oh, right.
Well, you never see her with such dramatic emotion
Yes.
at this moment. Courtesy of Jeff, was it?
Yeah, Sybil crying coming up. It was one of those things that kind of ballooned where originally it was just an idol of her kind of weeping. And then it turns out there was dialogue with it, so it turned into this much bigger thing. But
it's totally awesome.
I think everyone laughs at this. It's
this is coming
and
up
her
right
run off. I just
Right here. There it is. The weak wristed
guess
thing is great.
If you make people laugh, it's you did something right, I guess. So.
And this is Marco's craft.
Yes, spinning newspaper.
And bonus second newspaper.
That's
bonus second
Yeah.
newspaper in this particular chore. Yeah, this was
Picture in
I love
picture.
the facial hair on Lincoln, this expression. Okay. Nice.
Yes. I got to have a lot of fun with the effects in this one. I got a few more effects chores, I guess. Chores. Choreography chores.
Did you also do the rays, or was that
John? That's John's rays.
Those are the classic rays.
Classic John
Scrow
rays.
did those rays.
John Scrow. You wanted us to mention him. This is classic. I loved. Is that your idol, Jeff, for the Super Bowl?
I did something in episode one.
One of those.
Yeah, the focal.
I did
points,
something
you
in
know.
episode 1 where they get hypnotized. I wasn't sure.
That was the
Yeah,
Soda Poppers.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think that was
but they might
Soda
have
Poppers played on
put
the
that on there, yeah.
on the Super Balls.
It worked well with the Super Balls.
Let's not call them that.
The Secret Service agent.
The Super
That's
Balls, though.
Oh man, coming soon. Herbert Hoover
This
hugging.
is-
Yes, Herbert Hoover.
Oh maybe. Oh, this is it. Yeah.
More soda. Sure, why not?
Featuring Drunk Wizard.
Yeah.
Is it hard to reach the bottle to his house?
That was a pain, yeah, having his... Because his head is so huge, his arms are so short. But this is all Daniel from this point on.
Well, the idol helped loads, but usually when we have a special idol, we have to do special gestures for it, but it actually works to have him sort of drift in and out without drunkenness.
Sloppily waving arms.
Yeah, it's just like moments of intense focus going back to drunk.
Those 5 o'clock shadows are just so awesome on them.
That's the best one right
Yeah.
there.
I never understood this whole Hoover was never president thing, but whatever.
Maybe they idolize him.
I don't know. This is the episode where the Soda Poppers become the most awesome in my opinion. Like this whole thing when it's revealed that they actually hate each other.
Yeah.
Because they seem kind of like friends in episode 1.
It's drunkenness is awesome.
That's great.
And this is all
the
It's not actually all me.
No, it's also Pete.
It was largely blocked out by Pete Sagal, and then Bogan and Tim and Jeff made a billion animations. Actually, originally there weren't that many, but then people kept sneaking over and saying, "Oh."
Right.
And then
Over the week it was created.
over the week that it was made,
Well, it started with just make some
like make them sit on the
15
side.
frame gestures where they kick or do some jazz hands, and originally there was
Or
when
do
I first
some
started doing it there was
claps
no
and fists
there was
spinning around.
there was no music either, so I just did it on 15 frames, and it's just amazing how after all this stuff goes in the engine it just works,
Yeah.
Yeah, and then once the music came in, you had to do the whole
yeah, and
chorus
then
line
yeah,
thing.
there was the chorus line scene coming up was animated to the music, which was fun to do. It's
I still wish we had the video of Bogan demonstrating exactly how it's like first the hands are down here and then they're waving them.
A couple of these dance steps I was doing in front of the mirror in the restroom, just trying to figure out.
Did any red dudes
You came up with this.
I don't know how that way. But it's just their blank expressions when they do it just work so well. They're so dead serious.
That was Peepers wearing one of the rare, never seen governor costumes.
All right.
The snow angels.
Here's the clap.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. Oh, that's when they're in front of the
Please,
flag.
that's the
This
crazy
is
river dance.
The chorus line here,
Yeah, there you go.
which was animated to the music.
Oh man, and the best thing of all in this is how when Pete
The guy on the left is off.
Yeah, they're all like
The
they're
one on
not
the
quite
far
right
left.
lined up because the animations are all playing about a quarter second off from each other, so no one's quite got it.
yeah, that's right. Does anyone actually hit it?
No,
That is so creepy. That
And this is all crazy
Laying on
Jake
the-
stuff. 'Cause, it's like now you just fill out this time somehow.
yeah.
what?
Wasn't that? It was like Pete sort of blocked it all out, and then except for this part. Where it
Yeah,
was
this
like,
part, when Pete handed it off to me, all sort of basically blocked out. This part was just a shot of the couch for a minute and a half or something. So, and then there were.
And the George Washington is Steve
It's
Purcell.
Steve. Yeah.
Hey, look, the Easter egg. There's a sign there.
Forum guy. Yes,
That's
Oh,
the
yeah.
war song.
he is correct.
Yes, he is correct in that.
Oh man, this is awesome, and a sneak peek at the moon music.
Oh, that's right. Is this John or Mark?
No, this is
That's
me.
Marco.
That was my Akira
awesome.
laser there.
Well played, Bosco. You're safe. But for how long? Don't mind if I do.
Wasn't this Ryan Hood, I think, did this animation?
With that awesome lying pose that
The idol.
was used a lot of times later.
Oh,
Yes, it's
here's
all
my
part of
Frankenstein animation with Marco's awesome
Smoke
missile
effects.
effect. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just a pile of rubble.
I love this. This part was great to animate. Just throwing Max out of the car, like totally defying physics.
And much debate about the hat too.
Yeah, right.
What's the flying head?
Yeah, whether it's
How
marble
natural
or
is
it's, you know.
How heavy is that thing? Would it fly like that?
I was hoping that finally meant that his hat would not be on his head in episode 6, but apparently he picked it up.
He's got to have his hat. It's characteristic.
Whatever.
That was the Marie Antoinette eat cake line.
I really like that you, when you animate Sam, you give him things like flipping up the hat and stuff. You always animate him sort of like a happy dad from like 40 years ago. It's awesome. Like when he like jokes with Max choking himself on his tie in the end of 5 and stuff. Oh man, he's funny. Oh, this is the end. Sorry.
Okay. That's all right.
You got to give him the good old buddy thing.
Right.
Exactly. Well, that was episode 4. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
This is episode 4 of Sam and Max. This is the first cold opener we had. This is the, also, should say, Bay Area Sound Audio Commentary. I'm Jared Emerson Johnson.
Julian Kwasniewski.
And yeah, this first cold opener I loved, and my little tribute to Tubular Bells from The Exorcist here. It's just so over the top and ridiculous. And then into our Sam and Max theme.
That's Roger Jackson there.
As the
demon bug.
As the demon bug, yeah. Roger Jackson, who also is the voice of Abraham Lincoln.
Yep.
And also the voice of the Scream Ghost,
That's
if I'm
right.
not mistaken.
Yep.
From the Scream movies. And the wah 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 on the phone is none other than
That's
Julian
me.
Kwasniewski.
Wah 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 wah.
Jay Kwaz.
And I might also add that for all you youngins, phones used to be dialed like that. There was a rotary dial.
Tell me more about the
Tell
phones.
me more. Tell me more about the early 80s.
Sam and Max they're kind of stuck in the early 80s emotionally.
It's good.
It is good.
You can make a lot of money as an 80s cover band.
Tell me more about the 80s
Right.
cover band.
He's curtailing civil liberties.
And this
the holster pull.
This, I know a lot of the fans with this episode, they started talking about the season very differently. And I think it's just because it was such a shock to... First, the cold opener, I think, really changes the feel of this episode. And also, the fact that it just dumps you right out there on the White House lawn right at the very beginning. It's like... for one, they're not, confined to sort of the New York thing. I mean, I think WARP and the Toy Mafia, I mean, I love those stories and they're great, but to suddenly find yourself in the White House, and then in the next one, Reality 2.0 is such a big thing, and then to the moon for episode 6, such a huge jump. I think it's a part of the Sam and Max universe that people really like in the comics, which is that they can just kind of go anywhere, and there's no restrictions to that. And having... it's gruesome. I love that the White House mailbox is the White House. So musically, this episode obviously had a fairly different flavor from the other ones, which was another fun thing for me. It was really... I always try with each of these episodes to have them hold together very much as their own unit, kind of, separate from the whole season at large, while still fitting into some kind of overarching sound. But this one definitely has that Americana feel. And,
Doug Boyd here as the President of the United States. And he is so fun to work with. This was a hilarious session, and
Doug's one of those voice actors who's such a pro, who's been doing it for such a long time, and he knows it better than anybody, and he knows what will work better than anybody, and he can do so many different. He can do pretty much any voice you'd want to have him do, and he's a sweet
really
guy.
good guy, and a lot of Sam and Max has a lot of little jabs and jokes about politics, and it was just funny to hear his outtakes, and many of which were unsuitable for public consumption.
Highly political.
Highly
political charge.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah. And Chuckles, return of Vegas trip, as Chuckles. I wanted to, especially after the third game, I wanted Chuckles to be very clearly not just this sort of subdued, sinister mobster that he is in episode 3, but in 4 to really be a huge butthead and just a real jerk. And he's so rude, and he's always kind of pissed off and angry in everything he says in this episode, which I thought was pretty funny. And Vegas did very well with that direction. It was fun.
It's kind of hard to hear the ambience in a lot of these areas, especially in a room like this. But we intentionally took a film approach there and put room tone in rooms. And when you're outside, outside the White House is this nice cheepy birds and distant traffic. And there's subtle little things. And, if you were to mute them, you would notice their absence. A lot of times you don't necessarily consciously notice them when they're in, but it really makes a big difference.
It's one of those things with a lot of people. I find it's so funny, they just don't think about it. And I know that before, when I was growing up, before I was a real audiophile, when I was a kid, I never ever thought about it with cartoons. But cartoons don't make sound.
Right.
There's no sound that is made by a cartoon. And to realize that for anything you hear, birds chirping outside, or just room tone, just the sound of an empty room being still, is all sort of handcrafted by sound guys.
Yep.
It's something that often isn't considered. I mean, it's obviously true in film as well with live action because of the way that it's put together. But I mean, obviously, it goes without saying that in a cartoon, it's all made after the fact.
Where do you think you're going?
I've got to get in there. Bad.
We've got a priority red number 2.
We have a lot of fun with these. This here, God, Whizzer is just such a disturbing person, but I kind of have a soft spot in my heart for him because it seems, of all the 3 soda poppers, he seems to be trying the hardest to be a normal person, and for whatever reason, he just can't quite do it and falls apart.
Now it's time for some checks and balances.
And that sound, I love. His head just sounds like it's so heavy, made out of concrete or something. And the little screwing with the soda poppers theme pops in there earlier when you're with Wizard. For those who are keeping track of all the themes as they come by, we'll have a quiz on the themes at the end of the episode. I'll be passing out some forms.
Punishable by something gruesome for failure.
Yes. Here's Chuckles going off in his riff, and this is in the background for those keeping track of themes, the plotting evil tasks theme that you can first hear in some of Brady Culture's soliloquies in the first episode.
Still, ratings from the last State of the Union address were even lower than reruns of Midnight.
It's funny, all these, it's another thing, going back to what you were saying about how cartoons are silent and how you don't really necessarily know when you're younger that everything is intentionally placed. And with the voices here, the amount of voice mastering we had to do to compensate for each person's, human qualities.
Boominess in the bass registers.
Yeah, different volumes, different pitches.
And whatever.
The idea is, in the end, you don't notice that. You just listen and you hear, and nothing stands out as, whoa, that was incredibly loud. And so it's something that, again, we took that kind of film approach and really every asset that went into the game, we not only created it for a reason, but then we, mastered it such that it would sound appropriate.
And speaking of the little servo sounds that you hear whenever Lincoln moves, the little robotic, sounds. That was something. Now, after we gave Dave a very hard time on the commentary for number 3.
Here's where we make it up to you, Dave.
Here's where we make it up to you. He was totally happy to have us do that for this.
Yeah.
And maybe it was because we were so harsh about the bear heads. But it wasn't in the original design necessarily that Lincoln would be making these robotic sounds, but the idea to me was hilarious that first of all, giant statue of Abraham Lincoln animating is funny, but then to add the fact that it's like a mechanical robot that Chuckles has somehow modified just seemed all the funnier to me. And all those sounds, it's very funny. And if you listen there, every time he does any little movement, like right there, it's in there.
I think what's great about Dave and Brendan is that, and the whole team, is that it was a highly collaborative experience, and it continues to be as we move forward to season 2. And it's just, it's wonderful to be on a team where you're not just fulfilling sound lists. We're really integrated into the project, and you know, a lot of the audio really carries many of the jokes, and it just accentuates things, and you know, obviously the music brings the emotion and
all these little themes in here. It's a lot like, for those who are fans of the Bone score, my Smiley Bone theme incorporated a lot of kind of more rustic Americana, folk, and blue, some bluegrass. Well, mostly folk and sort of early American popular song into that. And this I was trying to do a very similar thing with more of the sort of Americana, a lot of Civil War hymns, you know, a lot of obviously the Battle Hymn of the Republic, and some of John Philip Sousa in there, and Hail to the Chief, of course. And, it's always fun. I've always loved taking recognizable tunes and sort of tweaking them and meshing them and morphing them and having them run into each other and turn them into a new thing. I especially the sort of twisted Hail to the Chief that appears in here. It's become my new favorite way of hearing that music, and without going into politics too much. Sometimes when I see our president on the television, I hear that sort of version of the Hail to the Chief in my brain, and it gets me through the day. It gets me through the day until 2009 January
when something else will
happen. Who knows? Perhaps you're listening to that at that time, and maybe it's
off. Already happened.
Who's to say?
I believe we have a question in the audience from someone.
Poor Sybil.
We love Sybil.
We do love Sybil.
And speaking of voice talent, Amy Provenzano,
Provenzano,
just wonderful person as well. And
very sweet.
It's almost criminal how much
person.
fun we have in those sessions. And we actually get things done, too.
Yes. Believe it or not.
Listen to me, America.
We actually, Telltale has I talked about the audio engine a little while ago, and they have a series of file names that generate these code numbers, and so we quickly had to come up with a way to record the dialogue. And you know, when you look at a file name, you have no idea who it is or where it goes.
It's called 763-5987.
.wave. And so we came up with this great system where we output scripts in a certain order, and it's all automated. There's no paper script, so we're not contributing to the deforestation in the Pacific Northwest and other parts of the world. This is great.
This episode is where the bleeping kind of
started
to get a little bit out of hand, and it's good. I hope there's a lot more bleeping in season 2, because
what's really
bleeping
funny about it is that the some of the actors, they knew that bleep was coming, so they would just insert an expletive there to make it sound real when we put the bleeps in.
And sometimes they were
very
really
inappropriate.
Harsh. Especially William Caston came up with
some great ones.
A very colorful statement. I believe it's in his joke that he tells, the droll story joke that happens in that piece of dialogue. If you were to hear the unbeeped version, you'd be
writing to the company.
You'd probably be writing, and there'd probably be some kind of coalition with an acronym.
And we would get in a lot of trouble because we recorded it. But actually, the bleeping is actually a process, so it happens after the fact. So. Since it was such a furious schedule, we often delivered the raw takes so that the animators could get good, the chore tool guys could go with it and get the timings down, and then we would do the bleeping pass, and we would go through and add the bleeps. And boy, I'll tell you, there were some moments where we couldn't get those bleeped ones in fast enough.
No.
Just on the chance that it would ship.
That it would ship with this incredibly not rated T for teen, or
not rated
E
anything.
for everyone,
It's
or
absolutely
rated
AB,
rated
absolutely
no
brutal.
for lawsuit.
Totally. Rated L.
But this is that scene I was talking about in the episode 3 commentary, where you hear the fully realized version of the Screwing with the Soda Poppers music, and it's got that wonderful kind of horn thing. And I don't know if we're about to see the complete war song, but that's what follows here. I think we are, yeah. This this song, I think, if I'm not mistaken, was the first. Well, it was the only musical number that was originally in the plan for the whole season. From the very beginning, when they were first outlining the whole arc of the season, I know they earmarked this as where they wanted to have a musical number. But because, as I said earlier, because I put together the little Soda Poppers theme for the first episode just because I thought it would be amusing, we got to talking, and it kind of became an ongoing shtick, to have some live music. But this was the one that was planned out from the very beginning, and so much fun to do this kind of Charleston style.
Yeah.
1920s, oh baby.
It
song,
totally came together
yeah.
too. It's
and the performances, the very sort of authentic performances by Mike Whitwell and Jordan Wardlaw on the sax, clarinet, and trumpet. And that's me singing.
Yeah.
All of them. That must be why all the agents look so similar to match me. And all these dances, just so ridiculous. It was very important to me also early on that if, they said show-stopping musical number, so I wanted to make sure that it really had the full deal. So I wrote in this big dance break, and I think some people weren't necessarily expecting that, and it, of course, created this sort of vacuum where it was like, well, we need to now animate a huge dance break for like a minute, and I know that a lot of people got pulled off of other various tasks to help with that, but the end result, as far as I'm concerned, is just incredible.
When's the last time you saw something like this in a game? Now, come on.
Seriously. And Jordan's just wailing on the clarinet there. And you have that air siren in there in place of the sort of fire engine siren that you might have heard in a 1920s thing. What is he doing on that couch? That's always disturbed me a little. I don't know what he's doing. But it's so much fun. And I love music from the 20s and 30s and 40s, and it's some of my favorite stuff. And I have somewhat of a background in American musical theater and have done a lot of performing, and all of this repertoire is some of my favorite stuff in the world, and to have a chance to do something like that for a game is an opportunity that comes down the line but once, although who's to say what might happen
in season 2.
In season 2, but let's maybe one more time. Clean up and aisle everything.
Well, let's not do that
Is this this is the episode where Bosco is Russian, I believe. I don't think we had the cutscene. We may have been talking over it earlier, but there's a cutscene when Bosco is Russian, where if you listen to the background music, it's sort of a loungy, like Nordstrom piano guy version of the Russian national anthem. If you listen, it's one of my little musical jokes that's probably only funny to me, but I love that kind of stuff. Look out. There we go. Speaking of those servo noises, it's going crazy. And Chuckles is just so brutally murdered. He's just dead. And we're about to hear that Sam and Max music that first appeared on the Myra show. Yeah. The starts and ends of these are always very tricky to put together, just because, like anything, you want it to feel like it's wrapping up, but then, it's also a continuous thing, so that's always something you have to kind of sit down and consider musically when you're putting music together for these kinds of things, especially these where it's always ending with a little hint of something that is to come. You want it to feel like it's continuing on, but also feel like it's wrapped up so that the player isn't just annoyed for the next month.
Error.
And we'll see you next in Reality 2.0.